was about 27% of the total immersion graduates between the years of 2000 and 2007. Some of the things that were interesting, I think, 85% of those immersion students continued on in the junior high Spanish immersion program, and 80% continued on through high school. 83% had high school GPAs between 3 and 3.0 and 4.0, and over half of them had high school GPAs of 3.6 or above. 99% of them went on to college. 68% received college credit for their AP or placement tests. 41% went on at college to pursue a Spanish major or minor. 4% pursued things like international business or international relations. Another 8% had majors that incorporated cultural focus of some kind. And an additional 9% went on to have a language, another kind of language, not Spanish language, but another language focus in their post-secondary studies. Most of that group, 36%, were in French, 17% Italian, so that idea of language and culture and the way that threaded through their post-secondary experience, I thought was very interesting. 62% of them, when they were surveyed, planned to study abroad. And when we look at the number of study abroad students nationally in the United States, that is very significantly higher than the national average. Those are just a few statistics. The immersion students, actually I pulled up here, were some of the things that they said when asked about their experience as an immersion student. My life would be completely different without immersion. I believe the language immersion program really opens the eyes of students at an early age and helps them in our globalizing world. Putting me in the language immersion program was one of the best things my parents ever did for me. My years in the language immersion program continue to positively impact me. I will always regard the experience as one of the most beneficial in my life. And it goes on and on for the graduates. I can speak personally to a particular Spanish immersion graduate that happens to be my niece. And I think that this is the exciting thing where language immersion programs can really lead students in the future. My niece went to a Minnesota immersion program, K4. Her father was Salvadoran. She was one of those typical bilingual family immersion students where mom is, just like what you were talking about, Elizabeth, and her dad was Salvadoran, mom was an English speaker. Her mom also happened to be a Spanish immersion teacher, interestingly. But after being in the immersion program, the family, dad got a job in Spain, and she was over in Spain. She ended up doing the IB program in Spain, both middle years program and then high school IB. She came back to McAllister College, which is well known for an international focus in their program, and she graduated with international studies and Spanish, but just in case a pre-med undergrad too. She was accepted a couple years later to UW-Madison Medical School, and her goal throughout all of this was to be able, once she figured out what she wanted to do, she knew she wanted to work with Latino families in medical outreach clinics. And right now she's in her second year of residency up in Seattle, Washington, and she's doing just what she wanted to do. She works at a fully bilingual clinic whose outreach is to Latino families, low-income families in particular. All of the staff in the clinic are bilingual, and the greatest thrill was when my sister called me and said, Annalisa just delivered her first baby in Spanish. That type of trajectory where the end result is professional level skills in the immersion language, I think is what we want to hold out there. And when it comes to the path of an immersion student, I've been banging my head against the wall for a long time about the secondary and post-secondary conundrum. And I can tell you one of the things we're doing right now in Minnesota. When we got the grant for the FLAP grant, that it was an LEA-IHE collaborative grant, we got it because we proposed to take the content area of STEM, a high-need area for the United States educationally, and partner that with Mandarin immersion education. And we did it because we have not been able to go for a flagship grant at the University of Minnesota because our Chinese language and literacy department is so focused on classical literature that they won't have a conversation with us about a flagship. Meanwhile, we have thousands of Mandarin immersion students that are learning to read first in Mandarin coming up through the ranks in Minnesota. Our oldest students are in 5th grade in one of our programs. So we got our heads together and said, how can we do something else? Because there's this roadblock, which is so classic. And what we figured out was that a lot of Mandarin speakers hang out in the STEM areas. And that if we did what immersion, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We figured out that if we could take this Research One University and we could say, we don't want to go the language literacy route. Immersion has never really wanted to just be about that. We want to go the STEM route, and we want to build a STEM pipeline. And we want to work with these Mandarin proficient TAs and GAs and help them understand how to work with immersion students at the post-secondary level. And we want to figure out how to do STEM K-16. And that way, we'll build a pathway for these immersion students and families who invest so much in those early years so that they can sustain that development and get to the goal, which is professional level skills using your immersion language. That's an idea.
We are down to our last few minutes, but I wonder if there's any questions or comments that people in the audience would like to ask, either to a specific member of the panel or just in general.
What occurred to me, Karlo, when Michelle was making remarks is when you ask the graduate of the program about their reactions has a lot to do with what they say. I know when we met at the 25th, you were more ambivalent about the program. And I remember one of the things you said at the time was how you remembered how you were kind of ostracized by other kids. It wasn't that you were the privileged. You were the weirdos over there doing immersion. Remember where the immersion program was in another building? It was off separated. And so sometimes perspective is crucial because I think your take now, that many years later, is so much more blanketly positive because those things seem so trivial. They didn't that many years ago, but so that's why it occurred to me, you might want to comment on it. It's when you're asked. Yeah. It's when you're asked. It's not one question going to fit all times in your life. It's going to be when you're asked.
Yeah, it was, it was tough. We were coming in, I remember being told later, I think that it was the teachers, the non-bilingual teachers felt threatened by the immersion teachers thinking that they were going to lose their jobs unless they became bilingual as well. And but the kids also, we were completely apart, and we kind of sort of integrated at recess, but not really. We were always separate. And since we were the first class, also, nobody knew what to make of us. And we didn't know what to make of us. We didn't know where we were going or what we were doing. And also, it was very tough in junior high. I remember I had the same problem going into the head of Spanish class and learning how to translate. And saying, wait a minute, this is messing up my Spanish. And I think my mom quickly pulled me out of that. And then I stayed away from Spanish till college. And that's why I moved towards French. So, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It was tough. It was tough, but so worth it.